Over this weekend, a sitting United States Senator died, and it wasn't the one we were expecting, but we are going to treat this situation with all the respect and decorum it deserves.
Fuck Lindsey Graham,
You mean Lady G?
as he is sometimes known, was sometimes known.
Now, in all seriousness, I do not like to celebrate death, but you got to remember Lindsey Graham is someone who actively fucking promoted Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. This is a man who is literally balls deep in G-side. Celebrating his life would be like celebrating the life of a certain small mustache dictator. We're not about that.
Damn true.
Fuck Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, Israel lost a great soldier, and it's always so weird to me too because he's from South Carolina. Why the fuck is a senator from South Carolina dick riding Israel?
That's kind of the problem that I've been saying through the entire Israel-Palestine conflict is that, like, it's not even that hard to explain to even people that support Israel why it's ridiculous how much power and influence they have over the U.S. in our elections, because, like, we have BDS laws in Wisconsin. Why the fuck do we have BDS laws? Why am I, as a Wisconsin native, allowed to criticize my own government, but if I try to boycott or divest or sanction the Israeli government, suddenly it's a problem, and I don't have my right to free speech anymore.
And women and the queer/trans community are a little bit safer now going forward.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a pet theory that Lindsey Graham is Arrow Ace, and he just wants to fuck over all the queer people that aren't him.
I mean, it's like the same thing.
Ace, why is he constantly going having butt sex with people?
There's a lot of allegations.
While wearing lingerie?
On all fours?
Oh.
Trust me, the story is very detailed.
That's entirely
That's only on
possible.
Resistance Radio.
I want to avoid, even though it's a story I would love to believe in because I think it's fucking hilarious.
Yes.
If I haven't seen any proof, I gotta call bullshit.
This clip is kind of a counter to what usually happens when people die in this country. Excuse me, when awful people die in this country. Because we always have this tendency to eulogize them in a way that takes away their biggest impacts, because those big impacts are typically evil. So,
like another person that is enjoying hell with Lindsey.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan. And in fact, Lindsey Graham and Charlie Kirk are right now fighting over who gets to be Ronald Reagan's bottom.
I cannot believe Emma said the words Ronald Reagan without fucking.
I think, he was certainly this political chameleon, and his legacy is complicated, and people are speaking out about the very hypocrisy that you saw when he was John McCain's friend and when he became friends with Donald Trump. Steve Schmidt, who's a political strategist and worked on the John McCain campaign in 2008, wrote just today, Lindsey knew better. And he said he was a lonely and unprincipled man who betrayed his country for power and his decency for attention. And if you look at his own words, Lindsey's own words, in 2015, he calls Trump a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. In 2016, he said, if we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed and we will deserve it. But then, in January 6, 2026, he calls him the greatest president of all time. And then May 27, 2026, he said they should change the Nobel Prize to the Trump Prize.
What? They need to change the Nobel Prize to the Trump Prize?
Well,
the person who can't even keep the fucking Strait of Hormuz open, and you want to name one of the most prestigious prizes after him?
One of the reasons he's having so much trouble keeping the Strait of Hormuz open is because he's not straight. Like she said, he's the political chameleon, where like he and that takedown by John McCain, another friend of John McCain's, was honestly so apt for Lindsey Graham, because he was supposedly best friends with John McCain. And having worked on the John McCain campaign in '08, like, this is the trend with Republicans, is every Republican that supposedly at one point was supposed to be the adult in the room that's mature and actually has like a good head on their shoulders have all fallen in line behind Trump, one after the other, even if he says that their dad helped assassinate JFK or that their wife is ugly, Ted Cruz, Or
that they're related to Fidel Castro.
Yes.
Which would not be a bad thing in my opinion, but
But
Yeah.
well, Dan always likes to say that under capitalism, the only ethical consumption is head.
yes,
And
it's true.
I'm not sure that it's always ethical with how much Lindsey Graham's sucking Trump's dick
Right,
here.
Okay,
That's fair.
okay, valid point.
And then finally, on June 9th, 2026, he says, Mr. President, you're not far behind God. And so I think when you're talking
Well,
about
he's going to have to explain it to God now.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you're talking about a complicated legacy and someone who may have betrayed his country for power, that seems to be, in my view, what his legacy became.
hate her and she's terrible. But that was funny.
I don't think he's gonna have the opportunity to explain it to God.
I don't believe in God, but sometimes I wish he was real.
Yeah,
I don't
think
either.
if hell's real, I feel like we skip the judgment phase for people that are super evil. So like Ronald Reagan, Lindsey Graham, John McCain, Donald Trump when it happens.
Free beer day.
Complicated legacy means you did some awful shit, but we're all gonna pretend to like you anyway.
Right, because we want to stand on this arbitrarily drawn soapbox so that we can appeal to the, the electability. Oh, they're not electable, so we can appeal to that crowd.
Real quick, we'll put it on the screen, but I'm going to read this statement by Michael Fanone, who was a Capitol Police officer that was one of the ones that was beaten and shit on January 6th. Lindsey Graham is dead. I will always remember my first and only encounter with him when he looked the grieving mother of a dead police officer in the face and barked that he wasn't going to listen to her blame Trump for January 6th. When I showed him my body cam footage from that day, he turned away and looked at his phone. Rest in piss, you fucking worthless scumbag. If there is a hell, I hope you're in it. I think that sums up my feelings on Lindsey Graham pretty well. I've been waiting for that motherfucker to die for 20 years. Here we are.
Okay.
You're next, Turtle Man.
It was not. I was about to say it was not the death announcement I was expecting, but here we
I will say, a good friend of the show, Megan, has been talking with Mitch McConnell every single day.
I know. Yes.
And, gleaning some very great info.
Always in like 20-ish minute segment.
Yeah.
And you see that great picture of him in the hospital bed with no IVs attached, looking better than he did his last
In
appearance
regular
public.
clothes, which is, they typically, when you're rehabilitating in the hospital, they let you wear regular clothes like jeans and a button-up shirt.
drippy sock.
Yeah. And then his wife, who is actually in China, was somehow in the room with him taking the picture. I'm not saying it's AI. I'm just saying you can do anything with pictures and make it look real these days. So,
Including, but not limited to,
Conspiracy.
and also the other part of it too is that, it's kind of a thing with old people where when they'll rally all of a sudden and it's like, oh wait, are they getting better? And then they die.
Terminal
It's like
lucidity
me at the
Yep.
club, except I don't die.
so
Yeah.
far.
So we all, I think, heard that ICE, in typical ICE fashion, killed a man in Houston last week and pulled the same tired old excuse that they pulled with Renee Good, that they were trying to weaponize a vehicle. Obviously bullshit. And we come to find out today, on the 13th of July, that ICE has killed yet another person of color, this time in the state of Maine. His name was Joan Sebastian Guerrero, and he had a wife and 3-year-old daughter that watched him die because these fascist fucks are so concerned with an alleged invasion of this country from people trying to make their way and make society better that they are coming in and just killing them. And we are going to learn more about that in this clip.
We have to protect our arbitrary squiggly lines and keep everybody on the right side of them.
We're learning new information about an ICE shooting that killed a man in Maine. The Associated Press is reporting the victim was not the intended target of an arrest warrant based on his immigration status. Earlier, I spoke with Maine Congresswoman Shelley Pingree about the shooting. What was your reaction when you first heard about this, and what are you hearing from witnesses and community members?
I was just horrified. I was actually headed to Washington and decided to go right to Biddeford, the community where the shooting occurred, so I could take a look at the policing. There was a huge protest going on there today because people are so agitated and upset about this, and to find out a little bit more about the shooting. And it's just horrendous that this should happen in our state.
This is the second deadly ICE-related shooting in less than a week. What are the key questions you have right now?
Well, we have a call into Mark Wayne Mullen, the head of Homeland Security, but we've been asking a lot of questions, making sure there will be a thorough investigation. We want to know if ICE agents were wearing body cameras, although we've seen some videos of what allegedly occurred. And we want a lot more details. They have yet to release the name, and I have actually heard on good authority, although it's not been confirmed by them, that they perhaps shot the wrong person, that it was not the person they were going after, and even the person they said they were attempting to get had a work permit. It appeared to be legally here in this country. So it's very disturbing for people in our state. We've had a much bigger ICE presence than most people understand, going on for quite some time. In my office, we process a lot of cases. People who are looking for an individual who is taken to detention, people who are afraid to leave their home because they've been sought after because of ICE, even if they're legally working here. Now people are going to be afraid to leave their homes because they might get shot. It's really unthinkable and just a horrific situation.
Now, is this an official operation here where you say that you've seen increased ICE presence in your state?
Well, they appear to have an official operation. I mean, we had many months ago their official catch of the day where they were here for 1 month. That's horrendously named, by the way. But even though when they said they left, ICE continues to work out of our state. And we know because of the cases that come to our office, they're knocking on people's doors, they're detaining people. And virtually everyone we hear about is legally here in this country. They're waiting for an asylum claim to be processed. Most of them have work permits or they're in between getting their work permit processed. We don't have a lot of hardened criminals that they're out there picking up. These are just people who are our friends, our neighbors. They go to school with our kids. They're our coworkers.
I simultaneously feel, an intense anger about this and also just feel incredibly fucking sad. And I also want everybody to be made aware, all the fucking chuds in the comments section, that these people are here legally. Just because, they're waiting for the process. They come here, they apply for temporary protected status, and then they literally are in the country working, raising a family, and then waiting for the process to start. So we're literally saying, actually, you can't come here at all. That's what we're saying. We're not saying, you see all these Republicans or even right-wing libs that are oh, well, we just want a better process. Motherfucker, they're doing the process and we're just killing them. And they killed the wrong person. You want to tell me that systemic racism doesn't exist? They were bang, guess we got the guy because... Yeah,
this is exactly why due process is so important and why they are so quick to get rid of it, because it's never been about getting the violent criminals and the people that are here illegally and all that, because over 90% of the people that have been detained by ICE have no criminal records, or it's stuff that's like a speeding.
Sarsour in Milwaukee, who is literally just a pro-Palestine advocate.
Yeah, and they'll make up whatever, they wrote a whole fucking backstory for Renee Good and
she's a lesbian Antifa member,
that turned them both into terrorists when everybody who knew them was that's not who they were at all. And the whole point of all of this is, one, keep us afraid of what they're doing. Two, they also learned from Operation Metro Surge that they can't really do the full force invasion thing without us losing our fucking shit, rightfully. So now they're doing these quick strike things where they just appear, do shit, and then go.
Yeah.
And then we don't have enough time to react usually. And then the third thing here is that this is also what ethnic cleansing looks like. Maybe we can add the clip in here, but there's a interview that Mehdi Hassan was doing with PBD, Patrick Bet-David. The whole debate is worth a watch, but this part specifically, he points out how Donald Trump reduced the number of non-white refugees that are allowed to come to the United States, and then allowed a large number of white South Africans who were fleeing nothing.
I want to know where you're going with this. He allowed in only 3 Afghans and 6,066 white people from South Africa. The two things I would say about that. Number one, that's racist. You let in 99.9% of your refugees are white people who are not refugees, and you don't allow people from Iran, Iraq, Syria. And the second point is, Donald Trump won't allow you into this country, and yet you sit and support. You voted for him 3 times.
Like, they claim there's a white genocide, but what that really means is that black people are now equal in South Africa to white people, and they're all racist because when you look at every single one, including their leader, they all said racist shit. Like, they're racists. They wanted to come here because we're being super racist, and this is how you do ethnic cleansing. You shoot anybody that would help the non-white people, even if they're white. Alex Purdy and Renee Good being good examples. And then you make sure that you get as many brown people out of the country as possible. And all of those two things combined bring you to people just leaving out of fear, which is the same shit that happened with Nazi Germany.
I'm going to say that in South Africa, white South Africans own 72% of the land, despite making up 7% of the population. That is not a group that's getting oppressed. That is a group that is still benefiting from apartheid.
Yep.
Yeah.
And okay, let me backtrack. So I don't think enough emphasis is really being put on we shot and killed the wrong person.
Yeah.
It was the wrong person.
Mhm.
So what does that say? It says basically that they had an intention to kill someone that day.
Yeah.
I shot and killed the wrong person.
On some cop shit.
You were gonna kill someone else then.
Mhm.
You had a
That's a
hit
good point.
list of people that you wanted to shoot and kill that day. Oh no, the wrong person.
This is why we call them...
Fuck up, get the fuck out.
Yeah,
For real.
this is why we call them a death cult, because this is the same way they react to prisoners for any... Like, if you say somebody was jaywalking, they're like, the cops can shoot you in the street, who gives a fuck? Like, their whole methodology is, it doesn't... Like, if you commit the smallest of crimes, you are marked for death.
Depends on which crime you commit.
Well, and there's also the Family Guy skin tone chart.
Yeah.
Family Guy skin tone chart and the money chart.
I do want to also just talk about body cams for a little bit because, you hear a lot of this in response to these shootings is that, a lot of the milquetoast, run-of-the-mill politicians that we have think that, like, body cams are like, this magical tool that is going to, help prevent these events from happening. And I would like to remind everybody that the, police nationwide have been wearing body cams for over a decade.
Mhm.
And they are still shooting people and people's dogs in a, staggering number.
In fact, the police actually asked for more body cameras because it gives them an out, basically, to say, like, look, we're giving you the accountability you wanted.
Right.
Meanwhile, they'll just turn the shit off, or because they control the data, they just won't release it, or it'll get magically deleted. And also, companies like Flock, who is garbage and evil, are the ones that make those body cams. So it's just like the military-industrial complex, where we have all these corporations that make these things, and then they market the fuck out of it to the government to make it into, surveillance state, military state, whatever you want to call it.
That is why.
This is where we're at.
That is why if you are ever at a protest and the boys in blue pull up, you take out your phone, put it on your chest like this, and you turn your camera on.
Yep.
Don't.
Also, fuck Ronald Reagan and fuck cops.
You can't say the body cams are useless. Cops used to shoot people and then nothing would happen. And now cops shoot people and there's a brief period of public outrage before nothing happens.
Yeah, and they get put on paid leave for...
I absolutely despise Waymos. So, this came up on my TikTok For You page, and I felt so bad for the guy, and oh my god, the Waymos were having another meeting in this random street, getting stuck for no goddamn reason at all, and just being absolutely robots.
You already said that they were there for a meeting, and then you're like, they're there for no reason. They have agency. They are having an important...
Okay, you're
Are
right.
you pro clanker?
I mean,
Missing...
Obviously.
James definitely doesn't have a knife to my
Misspeaking.
ribs right now. I don't know what you're talking
I
about.
apologize. Yes, they are having a cult meeting because Waymos are always scheming. So, let's watch this clip out of San Francisco, California, yo.
Still less of a cult than Tesla, though.
That's my car. This Waymo's trying to back up, and this Waymo's coming at me. And there's another one over there. What the fuck is going on? Dude, I'm fucking stuck. And now there's a fucking another one. I fucking hate this city. You see this fucking shit? Yo. It'd be so funny if I could actually go somewhere. It's okay, I don't know why they're street legal. Yeah, just keep reversing, that'll solve it. Insane. Okay, I drove on the sidewalk to unplug this fucking drain. Look at this shit.
Instead of spending the money on that, they could have spent that money on, like, I don't know, ending homelessness. Or, like, you know, school lunches for kids, making sure that every school is funded so they have books and shit. But no, we have to have these stupid-ass cars that do a job that was already being done perfectly fine by humans. Or we could just have, how about this? Fuck the Waymos, put all that money into high-speed rail.
For
You
real.
know how fucking hard it is to get from Green Bay anywhere else in Wisconsin? I have to drive. I don't have a fucking car.
I will say, you know, as technology advances more and more, I think I'm starting to become more and more of a Luddite.
I watched somebody I follow on Facebook who's cool show off their like really sexy pink flip phone, and there was a large portion of me that was like, how bad would it be to just go back to flip phones?
Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
If we spent that money on high-speed rail, who would think of the poor car manufacturers' profits? And don't forget that we used to have tram networks in most major cities until vehicle manufacturers bought them and deliberately ran them into the ground so people would buy more fucking cars.
Fuck you, Ronald Reagan.
It's true.
This is before Reagan. This is like 40.
I know, Lindsey Graham dead, I'm feeling myself.
So, you know, this next one we have coming up here seems to be a bit of a banger. I only saw the headline and I saw little Marco in there and knew that it was going to be triggering. That's for sure. I think we'll talk a little bit more. I'm a bit of a UN nerd, so this one definitely ruffled my feathers a little bit. But it's little Marco basically just being a marionette little puppet for Israel. So
Trigger warning, exposure to MAGA.
When the ICC was born 24 years ago, they told us that it was merely a narrow backstop, a global court that would step in to prosecute only the gravest offenses, things like genocide and war crimes, and only when a nation's courts were unable to prosecute them on their own. But the truth is, it was something far more radical and extreme. It was a global tribunal staffed by unelected globalist bureaucrats who claim their power is almost unlimited. The danger of this global court has only continued to grow. Today, it threatens every aspect of our political and legal system. Border Patrol agents removing violent criminals from our country, American Marines risking their lives to defend our homeland, prosecutors working to dismantle terrorist plots to attack and kill Americans. If we stand idle, all of them would be at the mercy of foreign judges thousands of miles away, facing the constant risk of prosecution and even imprisonment for the so-called crime of defending their own country. The American people never agreed to any of this, and they never will. Read the words of our Declaration of Independence. We fought a revolution against a foreign power transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. Independence is our birthright. We will never let foreign bureaucrats take that away from us. This administration will not sit by as the ICC and its allies seek to threaten our people. If they believe they can deprive us of our sovereignty, we will teach them the full meaning of American resolve.
You know what, fucking Rubio? You know who's not a signatory to the Rome Statutes? The United States. We're not bound by the ICC, and neither is Israel. But you know who fucking is? Palestine.
yeah, I think that brings up a really, good point. And I'm a UN nerd, so a shout out to Professor Wheat. There are two main judicial intergovernmental bodies when it comes to geopolitics. There's the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, and the ICC, the International Criminal Court. The ICJ is the official judicial body of the United Nations, which is obviously every officially recognized country in the world as a part of the United Nations. The ICC is more of a tribunal, like, little Marco said in the clip. However, functionally, they are very different. The ICJ, being part of the UN, is not legally binding. And they can issue statements on things, but it really doesn't carry much weight. The ICJ is typically also doing suits over maritime disputes and countries going into other countries' waters, or, mining in the other country, that type of thing. The ICC are the ones that go after literal fucking dictators, ones that are engaged in crimes against humanity and G-side. There is a huge fucking difference.
Yep.
And like James said, the ICC has put out arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu. They have put out arrest warrants for Vladimir Putin. They have put out arrest warrants for some of the worst fucking people on this planet. So of course the United States does not want to be involved. And of course they are going to frame this as a breach of our freedom. But honestly, call this a hot take. I think that having a global governing body like the UN, we should make the UN stronger. Like, we need to all operate on the same standard. So taking this away is just going to literally enable the United States to do more fucked shit in the global south.
So, as a former ex-con, aka conservative, who believed in like the whole rule of law, freedom, all that bullshit, one thing that Marco Rubio left out of his thing is that fight for independence he was talking about was also against a despot who wanted to do things that the majority of the population, like if, say, 75% of the population said, fuck what ICE is doing right now, and the president kept doing it anyway, and nobody in Congress fucking stopped him, then that would be an exact example of how the revolution was fought before, because they were like, hey, this guy's taxing the fuck out of us and doing this shit that we don't want, and also, I never picked this king, fuck this guy. And they were probably also like, he's literally never even been to the colonies. Like, this dude knows nothing about our lives over here. Fuck this.
And let's also not forget that the Revolutionary War was a war between the American ruling class and the British ruling class.
Yeah.
So
there was the revolution thing, number one. And number two, the rule of law is the International Criminal Court. It is the United Nations. We have those things deliberately because, if the United States' laws say one thing, but then Germany's laws say,
Right.
yeah, it's fine if you do the G side, then you would have no recourse otherwise.
Right.
It's not really, it doesn't make any sense.
how do you prosecute them?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense for the U.S. to go in there and say, we're prosecuting you by our laws, even though you did them in your country. So then the International Criminal Court, the United Nations, those kinds of international bodies, this is one of those things that made me get off of conservatism, exist for a damn good reason, which is regardless of the squiggly little lines on the map that say what country is what, we all live on the same fucking planet. So we have to follow the same rules,
Yeah.
country to country, regardless of how you fucking feel about it. Because if one country decides to fuck up the whole fucking planet with nukes, or by not respecting climate change, or anything else like that, it fucks all of us over. We're not just going to fuck the US over. We're not just going to fuck Russia over. We're going to fuck all of us over. That's why we have these international unions. That's why they need to be stronger. And it's why countries like the United States actually need to be held accountable by them instead of getting automatic veto power over them.
Oh, you mean how, like, the United States refused to accept the ICJ's jurisdiction over anything since 1986, when they ruled that we owe Nicaragua war reparations.
We play this fast and loose game with the UN, and it's the same thing that I said when we went in and kidnapped Maduro. Like, we play like that, but I guarantee you that if another country did that same shit to us, then we would cry, they did it with Gaddafi.
Yep.
Like, they got so scared of that man, and they went in and overthrew him, and now they have open air fucking cages in, like, Libya after that. But we engage in the same shit over here every fucking day. Not the open air cages, but the shit Gaddafi did.
Unless the country that fucks us over is Israel, and then you'd have half our politicians going up on stage talking about how much we deserved it.
True.
Lindsey Graham, may he rest in piss and may his memory not be a blessing.
Question. So, if they put out warrants for Netanyahu and Putin,
Mhm.
why aren't they executing them? Can someone explain that to me, please?
Well, they can't because
It's largely symbolic.
they would have to go into Israel, and the Israeli government would then just
Still,
arrest them.
Mamdani got heat for it because he has been asked if Netanyahu came to New York City, which is where the UN headquarters is, would he arrest Netanyahu? Because, like, he would have the ability to do that. A lot of it, I mean, the United States as a whole isn't going to do that because we're not signed on to that charter, but it is largely symbolic. because we don't consent to being told what to do. We got to tell people what to do.
By largely symbolic, it means that you can only actually execute these warrants if the person happens to be in the global south.
And also, another thing about the international union concept is, like, if you go through every single one of our interventions around the globe, not a single one of them have led to better results for people, except for how we handled the aftermath of World War II. And even that had its issues. But by and large, every time we have intervened somewhere, we've made it worse. Iran had a democracy. It was socialist, but it was a democracy, and women had rights. And then we overthrew it and put a dictator in place for oil. Actually, not even for us to have oil, so Britain could have oil.
Yeah, but they're not socialist now, so we won.
I guess. Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Mali,
Syria,
Syria,
Egypt,
name-
Venezuela,
not a
Argentina,
single
Brazil,
they've intervened
Peru,
in has been better off.
Indonesia,
Yeah.
Vietnam,
Saddam-
Cambodia.
Saddam Hussein was a brutal, horrible dictator. It takes a special kind of talent to go in and make that place fucking worse.
Yeah.
But they fucking did.
Speaking of making things worse, Donald Trump has been suing himself to provide reparations for the January 6th political prisoners, in massive air quotes.
Unfortunately, I know a lot more about Trump's feelings than I ever like to.
A federal judge has temporarily blocked the Justice Department from moving forward with that so-called anti-weaponization fund.
Yeah, U.S. District Judge Leonie Brinkema said in a brief order that this temporary halt to the fund allows her to consider whether to grant longer-term consideration of this suit. Perhaps no surprise, because in essence, every time one of these lawsuits gets picked up by a judge, they usually slap a temporary restraining order of some kind on it. It is being challenged by a handful of individuals, and they argue that this fund is a collusive agreement between the president and his administration that, quote, has no congressional authorization, no basis in law, and no accountability. And let's remember that what they're calling the anti-weaponization fund has faced plenty of congressional scrutiny, particularly among fellow Republicans who have asked the Justice Department for information on what exactly this is for, who exactly is eligible, what is the criteria for receiving funds, and is there any way that you can control who exactly gets this and ensure that those that were convicted of or charged with attacking law enforcement don't get payouts. But critics, of course, calling this a slush fund for the president's supporters and those, of course, who participated in the January 6, 2021 insurrection who had been pardoned by the president.
So let me get this straight, MAGA. You're going to say that January 6th was nonviolent, so all the participants deserve pardons, but there was violence, but that violence was done by the Democrats, even though it was MAGA in control of the fucking government at the time.
And also, FBI agents were planted in there, even though MAGA controlled the FBI.
Yes, of course that. But also because everybody who participated also deserves payouts. Like, pick a fucking lane. You'd lie better if you kept your story straight.
To be fair, these are also the people that believe that somehow Donald Trump stayed president after 2020 and was puppeting the Biden suit, but he was only in control of the military.
So
Yes.
he was all powerful except for when Biden did something stupid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They basically like slowly narrowed it down until it was like he's only in charge of the military, and I'm like, okay, so then you guys are saying that the military is garbage under Biden, so then it must be garbage under God President Trump.
Yeah, my favorite thing when they would bring up the Afghanistan pullout fiasco.
Yep.
And which was actually Trump's fault. And that's
Well,
like
yeah, Biden bears some
Yeah,
responsibility,
yeah.
but not much, honestly. Like the vast majority of it was a clusterfuck because of how Trump did it.
Right.
And he did it on purpose that way to fuck Biden.
right.
I've done better pullouts that resulted in
'Cause-
pregnancy.
So this is how it works, right? I've slowly been telling you the Trump playbook. Last time I told you about how he does the word association game in his head where they say it's doctored and he goes, I'm a doctor, that kind of shit. This is how it works with the Lie Factory. The thing about Trump and his methodology is when it comes
Methodology.
Yeah.
That's a bold choice of words.
Well, in this case, the meth part is doing heavy lifting here. But Trump's methodology is basically do the thing in such a way that if he loses and somebody else takes his spot as president, they get fucked by it,
Right.
which is what happened with the Afghanistan. And also, realistically, that's what happened with Iran, too, because Trump fucked over the Iran nuclear deal, and then Biden had to deal with most of the fallout. And then if he won, he could just come in and say, nope, we're not doing it. anymore, and then it's fine because he doesn't have to run for another election, or he'll blow up a deal and then make a worse version of that same deal that he blew up.
Repeal and replace.
Like he did with the CUM agreement, Canada, US, Mexico. Oh, wait, what's it called?
CUM agreement.
What was it called? It used to be NAFTA, and then he got rid of that because NAFTA was objectively bad. But then, USMC, right? No.
United States Marine Corps.
States Mexico Canada agreement. So UMCA.
Oh, because you tried so hard not to make it the CUM agreement.
I'm just going to be honest with you right now. If I was president, I would make it the
And
CUM
then,
agreement.
and then did he pull out of his own damn agreement because he said it was terrible?
Did he pull out of the CUM agreement? Yes, he did. As it so happens. Well, I think he's trying to, and also Canada and Mexico are like, fuck you, we don't want to deal with you anyway. Yeah, the CUM agreement.
Union of Socialist, Marxist, Communists, and Anarchists.
That's actually pretty good. That's pretty fucking good. So for this one, we're back to our state politics. We love the dairy state. We don't love Sarah Rodriguez, though. Fun thing about her campaign.
Okay.
1%.
Hot take.
So she fired her campaign manager yesterday and said that it was because they screwed up the financial disclosures, and that basically anything that you see on the disclosures, which are set to come out Wednesday, I believe. It's usually Wednesdays, but
Wednesday.
Yeah, thank you. So they're like, oh yeah, she fucked up the forms. Don't believe what you see on them, which makes me think like, what is on those forms then? Because if you just say we fired her because she fucked up the financial disclosures, but they'll still be up Wednesday.
So I hear that, and the old conspiracy brain of mine that's still, Green Goblin masking every once in a while, Spider-Man, is, wondering if this is her defense for people coming after her about taking APAC and aligned money.
What's also interesting is there's an attack that's been coming from the right lately, mostly from Jessica McBride. I don't know if anybody knows her, but she's a MAGA journalist that's weird. But she pointed out, and it's a fair point from what I can understand, that Sarah Rodriguez's husband might have potentially been here illegally. She herself kind of hinted at that when she brought him up, and so Jessica McBride seized on that and was like, well, if she, brought him up and made it an issue in the first place, what's wrong with me continuing to dig into it and wondering?
True.
And that it's a fair argument, but I don't care if someone's here illegally, fuck off.
So, posted by Dan Schaefer on X, it reads, Timeline. As Rodriguez described in her press conference, here is the timeline of events over the last week regarding her now fired campaign manager and mismanagement and inaccuracies in campaign filings. Tuesday, TV ads are supposed to begin, but didn't. Rodriguez. When I saw that this had not happened, I started to get concerned and ask questions. Wednesday, media team flags that invoices had not been paid. Rodriguez. I was given excuses by my campaign manager that did not make sense. Thursday, Rodriguez discovers total cash on hand for the campaign was far lower than expected. Rodriguez. I will generally say there were hundreds of thousands of dollars less than I thought. I am not going to put a precise dollar amount on that today because we are still reconciling our books, and I want the next number out of my mouth to be 100% accurate. Friday, Saturday, campaign assembles team to analyze reports. Sunday, campaign manager fired. Statement released. Wisconsin Ethics Commission contacted. Next, Rodriguez says TV ad will now air next week. On that buy. To be fully transparent, we have a little over $200,000 cash on hand in the bank. Over the time that we have been raising, we have raised almost $1 million. Rodriguez, I think we still have momentum. I think we're still moving forward. This is a bump in the road for the campaign. We are going to be as honest and transparent as we can be. That's why I'm standing here in front of you all, in front of all these cameras, in front of all these microphones, and telling you that when I see something that's an error, I make sure that it gets fixed. I'm taking full accountability for what happened before and moving forward. This sounds like a setup.
Yeah, leave it to the Democrats to go what can we do to beat MAGA? We've got to level up our grifting game.
Mm-hmm. Do we actually think that this was legit, or do we think that this was just her campaign taking god tier L's and not wanting to like actually blame themselves for it.
I think it's probably a combination of both. But also, how the fuck do you only have 200,000 cash on hand when you raised $1 million? Like, that's not just, oh, we had way less than we expected.
Oh, he's just, pinching off a little here
Yeah,
and there.
it's like, what are you fucking saying right now? Like, that's huge.
Yeah.
$800,000 that just. I don't know if it picked up that little poof noise, but.
That'd be kind of cute if it did.
Yeah, this is also like way worse than I thought it was.
Call me cynical, call me blue anon, whatever. I'm going to put my blue anon cap on. But like the way that they have been gunning for Francesca, I really honestly don't believe a lot of the shit that they're saying because at the end of the day, like this could just be a ploy for them to raise extra fucking money, right? Because like it's very clear that they do not want Fran in office, which is why you should vote for Francesca Hong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's entirely possible that she could have spent a sizable portion of that money, like in some dark money fashion, against Fran. Like she could have put it into some kind of PAC that exclusively targets her or whatever. Or she could have even, because Hillary Clinton was known to do this plenty of times, and so are a lot of establishment Democrats, where they try to do the Pied Piper thing on the right. And the Republicans, they do it because they're like, we can, if we think that we can beat Fran easier, except now they're not so sure about that. And then the Democratic side of it is usually like, Hillary did it specifically because she thought that Trump couldn't win.
Right.
And that was why she campaigned like an asshole, because she was like, I'm guaranteed to get this one. I don't have to do my usual thing. Like, haha, I'm going to beat this guy. This is easy. And then she got shellacked because she was a garbage person. So yeah, it's mixed results. Most of the time that you try to do this kind of strategy, it backfires. Just for legal purposes, my lawyer has instructed me to say, the one that hide my hair. There's a few people up there. The lawyer up there is a rat that pulls on my hair, just so you know. Has said that I should clarify that I'm not saying that Sarah Rodriguez has done anything nefarious with this money. I'm just saying when you leave it open like this and it's an extremely large amount of money, you can't just leave it the way that they've left it, where it's just like, well, we fired our campaign manager and like, I don't know what the disparity is. Because then people are just going to sit there and say, well, obviously there's something weird going on.
And I did, last thing I'll say on it is I did actually, as much as it fucking pains me to say it, Tom Tiffany raised a very good point about how, if you can't even run your campaign finances right, running a state, woe is me that I agree to something that Tom Tiffany said, because fuck Tom Tiffany, you betcha, but, he's not wrong.
No, the stop clock is right twice a day.
Is Sarah Rodriguez missing 3/4 of her campaign money, or did an APAC check bounce? I don't know, I'm just asking questions. Now, if I grifted that, we would have better equipment.
And we definitely wouldn't have white walls, because that would be like, I'm sorry. I know a lot of millennials have done this, and I would like to, as the representative of millennials on this podcast, James is technically one too, but also AI. So as the representative millennial rep here, I apologize for what millennials have done to home decorating, all the white wall and the beige.
And also, Sarah has barely touched the news at all for almost this entire primary until now is when I'm hearing of her.
Yep.
Other than the social media sphere, the news, I have barely heard about her. And so now, right before Wednesday, when all the financials are supposed to be released, then she makes the news. Like Fran has been in the news consistently. Yep. Mandela has been, kind of brushing in the news recently and will be. So is this a debut? Is she just like, hey, this happened here, I can fix it,
I can answer that question. So part of it is that most people don't start paying attention until the last 2 or 3 weeks.
True.
So I was telling this to Katrina and Pete and any other candidate that I advised. Most people are going to pay attention in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So if you get a late start or something, it's not the end of the world, as long as you can capitalize on that last period.
Yeah, that's why they have October surprise is a thing.
Right, exactly. So that's part of it, I think. I think it's also that Mandela has been also running a relatively quiet campaign, surprisingly. And I think part of that is because Barnes and Rodriguez think that they already have, well, they don't think. They know they already have the statewide name rec because Mandela ran for statewide office twice, and this is his third term. And then Sarah Rodriguez, of course, ran for statewide office and won. Tony Evers is lieutenant governor. So
who also ran 3 times and had allegations against them?
We will refer that to another time. But like I said in April, it's a bad month in April to be sex pest.
Thank you for watching an episode of Resistance Radio. We like to always end on a call for action, and this week I'm going to go with power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, it never will. Frederick Douglass.
Damn, okay, King.
I'm going to change mine up today only because, again, I am in a celebratory mood and have been for the last couple days. I hope Lindsey Graham and Charlie Kirk enjoy being Ronald Reagan's bottoms in hell.
So I actually don't really have a quip, more so I have something that we should have done maybe a couple episodes ago. It's not super long, but it's a little longer than y'all's. As you guys were aware from our difference in posting on the 4th of July, it has been 1 year of Resistance Radio. And I want to thank everybody that has supported the show. We have come so incredibly far in a year. You know, we started on Google Meets in our rooms and didn't have a space where we could all meet, much less invite candidates. And we have had a vast swath of people on the show, from professional Twitch streamers to, socialists in the house, right? And we have a lot more that we want to do, and a lot more things that are already in the works, including other big Twitch guests. But again, yeah, thank you everybody. And it means a lot because this is something that I always wanted to do. And I've been told it's making at least somewhat of a difference when I talk to people in the community. And so it's just been an absolute privilege to be able to do this. And, the easiest way to support the show is to interact with our posts in any way. Share, subscribe, repost, whatever.
All the free ways.
And we're going to keep making content, and, hopefully by this time next year, we're even better than we are now. So
for 6 months, we had 10 subscribers, and in the last 6 months, we've gained up to
204,
yeah,
205,
yeah.
Growth is amazing. I always like to keep mine super wholesome. Take care of yourself. You're beautiful. Treat yourself. Get yourself a little treat. You're amazing. You deserve to be here.
And get the women in your life a treat too.
Today I learned that I'm beautiful.
Yes.
Drink water.